Okay, dear students, welcome back. आज हम डिस्कस करेंगे about another very important analytical technique which is mainly employed in the surface area analysis, or I can say the pore size distribution of a porous material. So that is PET. इसको हम PET की नाम से जाना जाता है. That is your Brunauer-Emmett-Teller टेलर एनालिसिस या आइसोथर्म हम इसको कह सकते हैं, जो कि हमारे पास एक बहुत अच्छा टेक्निक है पोरस मटेरियल्स की अदर सरफेस एरिया एनालाइज करने के लिए, या हम कह सकते हैं पोर साइज डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन ऑफ एनी पोरस मटेरियल. सो लेट्स स्टार्ट. तो हम स्टार्ट करते हैं विद द इंट्रोडक्शन. अब बिफोर गोइंग टू द एक्चुअल बीईटी, let's discuss some important I can say important points or important concept, so that we can easily understand what we mean by what we can actually analyze by using BET. So not only BET, we have other some analytical techniques also which can be involved in the characterization of the surface area and pore size distribution of porous materials. Like we have mercury porosimetry. This is also used for the characterization of surface area and pore size distribution. We have small angle X-ray or neutron scattering, SAXS and SANS. We have electron microscopy, in which we have SEM and TEM and NLR method. So these are few of the analytical techniques which are mainly employed or used in the study of surface area. Yeah, I can say this study of, or we can say the surface analysis of any porous material. And finally, the gas adsorption technique, which is our BET. So out of these many analytical techniques, our gas adsorption technique, that is our BET. This BET has some specific characteristics which I can say, which due to which these gas adsorption process, or I can say BET, are mostly used among these analytical techniques to study the surface characteristics of any porous material. Okay. So among these techniques, the gas adsorption, that is our BET, is the only method which provide assessment of wide range of pore size from 0.35 nanometer up to 100 greater than 100 nanometer. So among these techniques, with these various analytical techniques, our gas adsorption, that is BET, provides very specific information regarding whether it is surface characteristics, or I can say whether it is pore size distribution, in which we can get a pore size from minimum of 0.35 nanometer up to greater than 100 nanometer. So that's why this BET is why very important. ये BET आपका कितना ज़्यादा important analytical technique क्यों है? Now, before going to actually see what what we do in BET, let's try to regain some concept of surface. So what is surface? So surface is actually the outer boundary of the sample, whether it is a solid or a liquid. Or we can say it is the boundary between the inner and outer section of any face. So this is where actually our BET works. BET actually works on the surface of the material. So to understand BET, first one has to understand what is surface. So what is the characteristic of the surface is, we can say that in the surface region, the interactive forces are different, resulting in reactivity of surface, and they result in adsorption of foreign molecules on the surface. So what is the characteristic of the surface is, we know that if this is a solid, now what actually happens on the surface is that we know that the molecule present in the inner part of this solid is balance it by either attractive or the repulsive force on all other sides. But what happen in the side the surface पे क्या होगा कि यहाँ पे जो हमारा आउटर जो सरफेस है उसका आउटर वाले फेस पे कोई फोर्स अप्लाई नहीं हो रहा है जो, लेकिन ये आपके राइट साइड से भी इसको अट्रैक्शन मिल रहा है, लेफ्ट साइड से भी और डाउनवर्ड से भी मिल रहा है. दैट्स व्हाई वी कॉल्ड एज दिस सरफेस टेंशन phenomena. So due to these phenomena, the overall attractive force on the surface are very different, which results the reactivity of the surface, and some foreign particles are adsorb on the surface of any material. Now, then what is adsorption? So we have two phenomena. One is your absorption. One is your absorption. Another one is your adsorption. So we are dealing with this term, that is adsorption. Here in case of BET, we have nothing to do with this absorption. Okay. So what we are dealing with is this the adsorption phenomena, which is a surface phenomena. So the adsorption is nothing, it is the, I can say, gathering of the molecular species on the surface of any material. Okay. So adsorption is what? Is the surface phenomena of the gathering of molecular species in an interfacial layer of whether it is gas or solid interface. For example, if we see here, it is the adsorption of the gases in BAT due to unbalanced surface force. So due to this unbalanced surface force available on the outer surfaces, some gases molecule, if we see in this BET concept, then gases molecules get adsorbed on the surface of solid material. And why adsorption takes place? Due to the unbalanced surface force. So these terms you have to keep in mind. So the adsorption in if we talk about the adsorption, two important components involved in adsorption. One is your adsorbent. What is adsorbent? This is the surface where adsorption occurs. So it is the solid. For example, this is a solid. So the surface of this solid is where I can say the solid is act as adsorbent, on which the actually adsorption take place. And if this is the gas particles which are adsorbed on this solid, then these gas particles are known as adsorbate, and the solid material is known as adsorbent. So in adsorption process, two components mainly occurs. One is the adsorbate, which are adsorbed on the surface of any other solid, which is known as adsorbent. So this is about adsorption and the component of adsorption. Now, moving on, the adsorption process is of two types. So ये जो आपका adsorption है वो दो तरीके से आपका occur हो सकता है. The very important one is our physisorption, जो कि ऑलरेडी हमने लोअर क्लास में भी पढ़ा हुआ है. दूसरा है हमारा chemisorption. So these two the process are very important. So what mean by physisorption? It means there is some only physical interaction occurs. Physical interaction occurs. Physisorption means physical interaction means there is no net chemical interaction. No net chemical interaction occurs. So it means there is no net chemical interaction between the adsorbate and the adsorbent in case of physisorption. If there is no net chemical interaction, it means some weak intermolecular forces, yeah, force of attraction, usually the van der Waals force. The energy of interaction is below 50 kilojoule per mole, and due to this low interaction, that is this weak van der Waals interaction, it takes place below the boiling point of the adsorbate. The condition here should be that the adsorption should take place below the boiling point of the adsorbate. Otherwise, what will happen? The adsorbate will get dissolved. So as the temperature increases, further, if we increase the temperature, physisorption decreases. Why physisorption decreases means because if you provide heat to the surfaces, then the movement among the molecule will increase, and this will lead to desorption instead of adsorption. So, okay. So Physisorption is just a physical phenomena. It means there is no net chemical interaction occurs between the adsorbate and the adsorbent. It is also a multi-layer adsorption process. So if we talk about BET, agar hum BET ki baat kare, this BET is a multi-layer adsorption process. So many less layer of gases get absorbed on the surface of the solid. So the chemisorption means the reverse of this physisorption. It means there is some chemical bonding, chemical interaction taking place between the adsorbate and the adsorbent. Like we have ionic interaction, in which the molecular interaction energy is greater than 100 kilojoule per mole. If we talk about covalent, then it is greater than 50 kilojoule per mole. Like we have metallic bond, that is 50 kilojoule per mole, and usually this chemisorption take place at higher temperature. So chemisorption initially increase with increase in temperature and up to a certain point, and then it start decreases. So when we talk about chemisorption, it restricted up to only a monolayer. So the physisorption process is a multi-layer adsorption process. It means many layers of gases can get adsorbed on the surface of the solid. However, when we talk about chemisorption, it means there is a net chemical interaction occurs between the surface of the adsorbent and the adsorbent. So between these adsorbent and the adsorbent, there is net chemical interaction. So to undergo a net chemical interaction, this chemisorption is only a monolayer process. So once the surface of this solid becomes completely occupied by these gaseous molecules or any other adsorbate, the interaction usually finish here. So only a monolayer of adsorption can take place in case of chemisorption. However, in case of physisorption, many multi-layer, for example, this kind of adsorption can undergoes when there is physisorption. That means there is no net chemical interaction between the solid surface and the gaseous molecule. That's why the physisorption is a multi-layer process and chemisorption is only a single layer process. Now, out of these two, the physisorption process, that is this one in which there is no net chemical interaction, is the most important, I can say the appropriate adsorption process to study the surface characteristics of any solid. So among these two, the physisorption is the most appropriate one to study the surface characteristic of the any solid. It means if I have a solid and I have to analyze the surface feature of this solid, then I have to use this physisorption process. Because in case of physisorption, there is no net chemical interaction between these two adsorbate and adsorbent. It means there is also not any structural characteristic changing taking place. That's why only I have physically adsorbed some gases here, and then after adsorption, I can easily remove these gases from the solid surface. That's why this physisorption is a very appropriate or the important adsorption process to study the surface characteristic of any solid. So the reasons are here that the first reason that why physisorption is important, then no structural changes occur to the surface due to low heat of adsorption, because there is no net chemical interaction between the adsorbate and the adsorbent. That's why no net structural characteristic changing also taking place in the solid. Dusra, multi-layer coverage by adsorbate occurs. The second characteristic is that it can occur in multi-layer process, multi-adsorption coverage can occur. Third is your completely filled pores to help in measurement of pore size. The third important characteristic is, for example, if this is my solid and I have to analyze the surface characteristic of this solid, what will happen in physisorption? If I have to undergo a multi-layer coverage here, then all these pores type of structure could completely filled by our gaseous molecule. That's why a physisorption is most appropriate. If I can do chemisorption, then what will happen? The pores cannot be filled completely, because we know that chemisorption is a single layer process. Due to the complete filling of the pores, this Physisorption also makes it appropriate to study the surface of the solid. Then the fourth is the reversible nature to study the both adsorption and desorption. The fourth important characteristic of Physisorption is that I can easily adsorb the gases molecules on the solid, and the same time I can easily desorb from the adsorbed gases from the solid. So what I have to do is, first I have to adsorb the gases molecules on the solid, and then after the adsorption completely covers the surface, I have to desorb these gas molecules, means I have to remove these gas molecules from the solid surfaces. That's why this Physisorption is important. Later on, we will see why this desorption is important. And the fifth point is the Physisorption covers the entire surfaces, no restrict to the specific side. The fifth important point is for Physisorption, there is no any restricted specific site required. So any surfaces can be easily completely covered by our Physisorption process, because this is a physical phenomenon. Now, but there are some factors which affects on the adsorption process. So during while you study the surface characteristics by using adsorption process, the following important factors you have to keep in mind, because these factors highly affect the adsorption process. The first one is the temperature, because we know that the adsorption process, Physisorption process usually decrease with increase in temperature. So the temperature is the key factor in this adsorption process. Pressure, as you increase the pressure, the Physisorption will increase, because the number of gases molecules will easily settle down on the surface of a solid. Nature of the gases. Some gases are more easily liquefiable as compared to other gases. That's why if you use some easily liquefiable gas, it will more easily adsorb it on this surface than the non easily liquefiable gas. Like we have nitrogen, then we have oxygen and hydrogen. Nature of the adsorbent. Larger molecule, for example, if you have an adsorbent which has a larger surface area, it is obvious that higher adsorption will take place on such adsorbent. So these are few of the factors which will affect on the adsorption process. Now let's move on to the mechanism. Now, how this adsorption occurs. Now let's see the mechanism. Now, as far as we know, we all know that we have already studied in our lower classes about your Langmuir and French adsorption mechanism. So for these three important mechanisms are well accepted to study the adsorption mechanism, and each of these methods having its own advantages and disadvantages. So the three important mechanisms adopted to study the adsorption is our Langmuir model, mechanism, French mechanism, model, and finally is this our BET model. Now let's start with the Langmuir model. Then what are the advantages and disadvantages of Langmuir model? So the Langmuir model was proposed by Irving Langmuir in around 1916 for the isotherm for gases adsorbed to solid. And after his discovery, the name Langmuir model was adopted, and he is awarded Nobel Prize for this research. The Langmuir model best describes our chemisorption process. So what the important characteristics of your Langmuir model is, this Langmuir model is betterly fit for the chemisorption process. आपकी chemisorption process को explain करता है Langmuir model. It means it is a monolayer process. मोनोलेयर प्रोसेस, आपकी अगर मोनोलेयर प्रोसेस को स्टडी करना है तो आपकी Langmuir मॉडल इस पे अच्छा फॉलो अप होंगे. Now this Langmuir model is based on some assumptions. The first assumption is the free molecule of gases and the adsorbent molecule of gases. There is a dynamic equilibrium exists. It means the adsorbed adsorbate and the adsorbent, there is a dynamic equilibrium exists. It means okay, this is a monolayer process. Second, the surface containing the adsorbing site is a two-dimensional, perfectly flat plane. The surface is homogeneous. The second assumption is that the surface should be homogeneous or it should be a flat plane. It means if you have any rough place, the Langmuir model cannot fit that. All sites are equivalent, means whatever the adsorption sites are available, all are equivalent in case of Langmuir model. Next is the specific number of sites are available on whether only one molecule can adsorb it, and the saturation of adsorption occurs at the monolayer coverage. So that's why we call it a monolayer process. Then there is no interaction between the adsorbate. Next is adsorption energy does not depend on the extent to which the surface covers. So the adsorption energy, there is no relation between the adsorption energy and how much the surface is covered. So based on this assumption, this Langmuir derived an equation in which phi is equal to Kp upon 1 plus Kp. So this phi is the fraction of the surface area covered. How much surface area is covered by your adsorbate gas molecule. Here P is our pressure, okay? And this B is nothing here. And this K is our constant related to our free energy of adsorption, So by using this equation, we can easily calculate how much surface area is covered by the adsorbate molecule. So this equation describes the connection between the how many number of active sites we have on the surface and how many adsorption sites are covered by the adsorbate gas molecules at a particular pressure. However, there are some disadvantages of Langmuir isotherms. The one is that it only applicable on at a very low pressure. ये आपके एक low pressure पे ही applicable है. अब क्या होगा at low pressure पे? The value of this P becomes, if the pressure is very low, I can say the value of P is very small. Hence, this part, the lower part, that is Kp, is very, I can small as compared to this Kp. Then in this regard, we can say that this phi will be equal to Kp. So if this P is very small, I can neglect this denominator part. So the phi, that is surface area covered, will be directly proportional to Kp, that is the pressure. So if the pressure is very high, अगर आपका प्रेशर बहुत ज्यादा होगा, then क्या होगा? I cannot neglect this P. So this Kp and this Kp will be equal. So the equation will be like that at high pressure. High pressure पे मेरे क्या होगा? This equation will follow and this phi will be equal to 1. So Langmuir isotherms indicate type 1 isotherm. In case of chemisorption, only one layer can be adsorbed to the surface, and therefore chemisorption always exhibit type 1 isotherm. Later on, we will see what kind of isotherms we can get in case of type 1 isotherm. Then we have our Frendelic model. आपकी Langmuir मॉडल का ये डिसएडवांटेज था कि वो एक तो लो प्रेशर पे एप्लीकेबल है, दूसरा वो सिर्फ सिंगल मोनोलेयर के लिए है कि chemisorption के लिए है. मल्टी लेयर आप Langmuir मॉडल यूज करके आप स्टडी नहीं कर सकते हैं. देन आ गया हमारा Frendelic adsorption, gives the variation of quantity of gas absorbed by a unit mass of the solid, that is our adsorbent, which change in the pressure of the system for a given temperature. अब यहाँ पे आप वेरिएशन आप स्टडी कर सकते हैं, and the equation of the Frendelic model is x upon n is equal to Kp raised for half 1 by n, where x is the I can say how much gas are adsorbed on the solid with mass m. P is the pressure, n is constant, and n is usually greater than 1, and the value of this n will depend on the nature of the adsorbent and the gas at a given temperature. So this is the Frendelic model, by which you can see the variation of the amount of gas adsorbed on a unit mass of solid by changing the temperature of the system, but the temperature by the changing of the pressure, but the temperature should remain constant. So the major difference between our Frendelic and the Langmuir is the dependence and non-dependence on the surface area coverage respectively. So this is Frendelic. Now the main point of our today discussion is our BET model. Now this Brunauer-Emmett-Teller model. Now this BET model is a multi-layer process. So this BET model, I can say, is a multi-layer process. Multi-layer process means that many layers of adsorption of gases molecules can occur on the surface of any adsorbent. So this was developed by Brunauer-Emmett and Teller in 1938. That's why it is named as BET. B means Brunner, E is Emmett, and T means Teller. So this BET theory usually considered as an expansion of our Langmuir theory. In Langmuir theory, the theory is only applicable to our monolayer coverage. However, this BET is a multi-layer theory. So usually it is considered an extension of our Langmuir theory. But in BET, it assumes that the Physisorption results in the formation of multi-layer adsorption. In case of Langmuir, we can say that it is bestly explains the chemisorption process. However, in BET model, it assumes that there are multi-layer adsorption occurs. It means if this is the solid, this is the first layer of gas adsorbed and this solid, and after that, there are other multi-layer process occurs that many other gases molecules can easily get adsorbed on the surface of the adsorbent. So this is a multi-layer adsorption process, and the multi-layer occurs due to our Physisorption. Physisorption means there is no net chemical interaction occurs between the adsorbed gases and the surface of the adsorbent. Next is this theory also assumes that the solid surface has uniform size of adsorption. Whatever the sites may be, that the adsorption capacity is uniform, and the adsorption at one side, if for example this molecule is adsorbed on this place, it will not affect on its neighboring side. It will not affect on the rate of adsorption on this side. This will not affect on the rate of adsorption on this side. So the rate of adsorption at any particular site on the solid is independent of one another. So after the formation of this monolayer, the adsorption process continues with the formation of this type of multi-layer, that is second, third, fourth, fifth, and so on. So the BT model assumes that a multi-layer adsorption can occur. So due to which your BT model actually represents the actual picture of the physical adsorption. So this BET model actually reflects the how actually a physisorption or a physical adsorption can take place on the surface of the solid. Like the previous model, this BET isotherms are also based on some assumptions. The assumptions are the first, that the adsorption sites are fixed. Second is the adsorption occurs in infinite layers, means multi-layers. Third is the force by which the first layer are adsorbed on this adsorbent is all attached to the adsorbent is also associated with the first layer heat of adsorption and also the temperature, how much heat are released when these gas molecules are adsorbed on this solid. So, and the fourth point is the molecules in these gases molecules in the second layer and the other higher layers are assumed to be liquid like. So these are the assumption, and based on this assumption, an equation of the BET has been derived, and this is the equation in which all the these required parts are used. That is, P here is the pressure, V is the total volume, P naught is our saturated equilibrium pressure, C is the constant, V is the monolayer volume. When one layer is completely occupied by the gaseous molecule, that is given by Vm. The C is constant, P upon P is pressure. So from this equation, we can calculate V total by remodifying this equation, that is CVmP upon P naught divided by P minus P upon P naught into 1 plus C P by P naught minus P by P naught. So this is the equation of our BET. And by knowing all these values, we can easily calculate the total volume covered, monolayer volume. And if you calculate the monolayer volume, from this monolayer volume, you can easily calculate the specific area and BET area. Now, the condition here is that this equation is only applicable if upon plotting these, that is this, if you plot this P upon, I can say if you plot this P upon V total P naught minus P versus your P upon P naught, you should get a straight line. So this equation is only applicable if you plot between these two and this P upon P naught, you should get a straight line. And from this straight line, from the slope and the intercept, you can get the different values, that is C upon of this volume and this two, you can easily calculate from this graph. So there are two limiting cases in case of your BET isotherm. First is when your constant is very greater than 1. It means iska matlab kya hai ki that our first layer heat of absorption is very high as compared to the enthalpy of condensation. And adsorption on second layer occur when first layer is adsorption. तो यहाँ पे अगर आपका C का वैल्यू 1 से ज्यादा बहुत ज्यादा है, इसका मतलब ये है कि आपका जो हीट इंथैल्पी ऑफ कंडेंसेशन एंड एड्सॉर्प्शन है उससे आपका हीट ऑफ एड्सॉर्प्शन बहुत ज्यादा है. इस मींस कि जब तक आपका पहला लेयर कंप्लीटली मोनोलेयर्स विल नॉट कंप्लीट अदर हायर दैट इज सेकंड एंड थर्ड एंड सो ऑन लेयर विल नॉट occur. For condition C is very greater than 1 and P is very less than your saturation condition, the equation BET changed to Langmuir equation and so the isotherm. So अगर आपका C बहुत ज्यादा है 1 से और आपका प्रेशर जो है इक्विलिब्रियम प्रेशर से बहुत कम है, then आपका this equation will changes to Langmuir equation. So this is the first limiting case. If your constant is very small, if the value of is very small, it implies that your multi-adsorption starts even when your first layer is not completed. So अगर आपका C constant का वैल्यू बहुत कम है, इसका मतलब ये है कि आपका जो पहला लेयर कंप्लीट होने से पहले ही आपका सेकंड और थर्ड और I can say multi layer adsorption occur हो चुका है. So these two limiting cases should keep in mind while doing this BET model. So for the determination of BET surface, the first case required is that your constant value, that is C value, should be very high, higher than 1. And if C is very higher than 1, and if you plot 1 upon P, Vp P naught minus 1 versus P, this plot, you will get a straight line, and the slope of this straight line will be equal to C minus 1 upon CV mono. That is this part. You will get the slope will give you this part, and the next the intercept will give you a 1 upon CVM, that is this part. So the slope will give you this part of the equation, and the intercept will give you the value of 1 upon CMV. So the condition here is that if you plot this part P upon P, V total P naught minus P versus P upon P, you should get a straight line. And in that condition only your BET model will be applicable. Once you got a straight line, then from that values, you can easily calculate the total surface area and BET, that is specific surface area of the material, by using this equation. Now we know that our slopes, from the slope we can get this value C minus 1 upon C Vm. Vm is our monolar volume, and from the intercept we can get the value 1 upon C Vm. Then we can calculate Vm from these two values. If we have slope and intercept, then Vm is equal to 1 upon slope plus intercept. And once we get Vm, we can calculate the value of C constant by this, using this equation. Constant is equal to 1 plus slope upon intercept. Once you get this constant value, we have another equation, that is ST. At ST means total surface area of the material is equal to Vm. Vm is the monolar volume, which means when your surface is totally covered by the single layer of the adsorbed gas molecule. N is our Avogadro number, which is 6.02 into 10 raised to 23. Then S is our cross-sectional area of the adsorbed gas molecule, and this is specific for every gas molecules, whether you are using nitrogen, argon, carbon dioxide. So whatever the gas are using, you can have these values. And V is the total molar volume of the gas adsorbed. How much gas you have used and how much gas are adsorbed during the experiment. Once you get the total surface area of the solid material, you can calculate the specific surface area, that is the BET surface area. That is equal to ST upon A. ST is our this value, that is the total surface area of the sample material, divided by A. A is the how much samples you have used, how much material you have used to study the surface area analysis. It can be 1 gram, it can be 0.5 mg. So from this equation, you can get the specific surface area of the material. So this is how you can calculate various part from your surface area analysis. Now let's come to the BET instrumentation. What kind of instrumentation we can use in case of BET, and what are the various processes we can use while doing with our BET. So this is a very I can say brief representation of our BET instrumentation, but the degasser is not shown here. So this is the nitrogen inlet from which we can use nitrogen gas and helium gas while we do our BET experiment. Okay, so this is the gas inlet in which we are introduced the gas which we will use in the study of our adsorption mechanism. So here I have this is written as the nitrogen gas, and in case we are using nitrogen gas, so this is the pressure. P represents the pressure, how much the pressure of the gas are there, and then the amount of, and these are the sample cells in which we use the samples for which we are analyzing the BET analysis, and this is the liquid nitrogen diver. So this is a very simple representation of our BET instrumentation, and the amount of gas adsorbed, and then during the desorption process, the amount of gas used are collected from here, and it goes to our data collector, and from this data collector you will get different isotherms, and from the amount of the gas adsorbed and desorbed during adsorption and desorption process, this will collected from by your data collector, and the analyzer will analyze the amount of gas adsorbed and desorbed, and from that you will get different kinds of isotherms, And that isotherms were be specific for every material based on the nature of the material used. So during while measuring the surface area with BET, the following five process will occur. The first part while doing BAT is to degas, heat and evacuate or at N2. This step is to ensure that there is no other gases should present in the chamber so that these gases should not interfere with our adsorption study. So the first point, the first thing you have to do is the degas of your chamber. Then the next step is evacuate. After degassing, we have to evacuate by using vacuum. So to make ensure that the chamber should be completely free from any case or any kind of impurities. Next is to the volume measurement. That volume measurement which should be done by using helium. How much volume we can use in case of to study the adsorption mechanism. Next is your evacuate. Once you have measured that volume, then again you should evacuate all the, in case of this we are using helium, you have to remove the helium from the chamber. Once all these four steps completed, then after our adsorption study starts, and to study the adsorption we have to add nitrogen in the chamber so that we can easily study the adsorption process. So in the one is your reference cell. The one tube is your reference cell, another one is your sample cell in which we have put our sample. So to study the adsorption, we have to supply with adequate amount of N2. We should make ensure that there is no I can say that the amount of N2 should be make available here in adequate amount so that the adsorption process can occur smoothly. Once your adsorption process occurs completely, then another phenomena is the desorption. Both the adsorption and the desorption branches will give us some specific information. So whether it is adsorption and the desorption process, both should do in very precise manner. So after adsorption, we have to remove the adsorbate gases from the sample and make ensure while doing these two first 3 or 4 steps that there should be no irreversible changes in the structure of solid could take place, because if there are any unwanted irreversible changes in the structure occur while our degassing, evacuating volume and evacuate, it should interfere with our result. So while doing this process, it should do below the melting temperature of our solid, so that there will be no any irreversible structural changes occurs in the solid. So this is the whole process of doing measuring surface area using BET. Now let's move on to the principle. What is the principle of BET measurement? So in most of the BET measurement we use nitrogen, but if you can there is some problem by using nitrogen, you can use carbon dioxide, you can use argon and extra depending upon the nature of your material. So the reason for using nitrogen is that one, it is available in high level of purity, and second is it is relative high strength of interaction with almost all the solids. So with the maximum solids, your nitrogen shows strong interaction. That's why in BET we use nitrogen. So prior to the release of nitrogen onto the sample, relative pressure less than that of the atmospheric pressure is created to achieve partial value, which we have shown in our earlier slides. So no more adsorption occurs when the saturation is reached. So these things are very common and very, I think it's important. So a highly precise Transducer monitors the pressure change during the adsorption. So how much pressure is changing, how much gas are absorbing, that is recorded by your monitors. So once your monolayer formation taking place, then second layer, then third layer, because we know that BET is a multi-layer process. Once the multi-layer formation gets completed, our nitrogen should remove, and then after that, the sample should be heated to release the adsorbed nitrogen, because both the adsorption as well as this or desorption process is very important in BAT, and both the adsorption as well as the desorption branches will tell us something about the nature of the surface of that particular material. And finally, the amount of gas adsorbed enables determination of specific area, that is BET specific area of that particular material. So the gas sorption capabilities of the samples are measured by surface area analyzer to get the measurement of pore size and the surface area. So how much gas are absorbed by the material, the amount of the gas absorbed, by that value we can measure the pore size as well as surface area of that particular material. So the amount of gas absorbed on the material not only depends on the surface area, but there are other conditions also that affects on that particular factor, how much gas will absorbed by our material. Like we have the force of interaction between the adsorbed and the adsorbent, means how much force of interactions are there between the solid and the gas to be adsorbed, and then we have the pressure and the temperature. So these are some of the factors which affects the amount of gas adsorbed during our adsorption process. So this is the principle how our BET works. Now this is the mechanism how adsorption takes place. So this is our solid, first solid in which there is no adsorption. Then we have applying gas. So starting when you started supplying gases, so their adsorption occurs. So these solid particles are our gas particles. This is how our adsorption occurs slowly on the surfaces. So how these gases particles are absorbed in these pores also. So here the monolayer formation is completed. So once your single layer is completely adsorbed on the solid surface, the adsorbent, we can say the monolayer formation will complete. So this is our VN, that is monolayer value. Then again, if we increase the pressure or we increase the supply of the gases, then this kind of multi-layer formation take place. So this is our first layer, this is our second layer, and so on. This will serve this will occur till the completely filling of this surface will occur, and here the pores is completely filled. That's why this is called as multi-layer process, because there are multi-layer of gases is adsorbed, so these pores are completely filled, and the amount of this gas used here to complete the filling of these pores, later on we can use the amount of gas adsorbed here to analyze the surface area as well as the pore size, how much pore size are there in this particular process. So once the complete adsorption or multi-layer formation or adsorption of gases occurs, in the reverse process our desorption process will start. Slowly our gas get dissolved from the upper layer, and finally our monolayers remains here, and then after when this monolayer will remove, and this is our again the solid material in which all the gases molecules are dissolved. So this is a two-way process. Once you have to for first time you have to completely adsorb the gas molecules on the surfaces. Once the adsorption completes, you have to remove all the adsorbed gases molecules from the surface. So this is how your adsorption and desorption occurs during our BET measure. Now, for the pore size distribution, now this is very important. What kind of pore size distributions are there and how we can classify these pore sizes. So The pore size is defined as internal pores if we have a slit shape. तो अगर आपका पोर्स ऐसा है, आपका ऐसा स्लिट टाइप पोर शेप है, देन हमें इसका क्या लेना होगा, देन इसका हमें विड्थ लेना होगा कि स्लिट के बीच में कितना विड्थ है. सो इंटरनल पोर्स विड्थ हम तब लेते हैं जब हमारा जो शेप है वो स्लिट शेप में है. और अगर आपका स्फेरिकल पोर है तो इसका हमें क्या लेना होगा, डायमीटर लेना होगा. अगर आपका इस तरह स्फेरिकल है डायमीटर लेंगे, और अगर आपका इस तरह पोर सिलेंड्रिकल है तो तब भी आप उसका डायमीटर क्या करेंगे, मेजरमेंट लेंगे. ठीक है, तो ये आपको ध्यान देना है कि ड्यूरिंग द पोर साइज डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन वी हैव टू लुक द काइंड ऑफ पोर्स. इफ द पोर्स इज आवर स्लिट शेप, अगर ये आपके इस तरह स्लिट शेप है, वहां पे आपको पोर का विड्थ देखना होगा. और अगर आपका पोर का शेप स्फेरिकल और सिलिंड्रिकल है, वहां आप उसको उसका डायमीटर लेना है. सो बेस्ड ऑन द एडसॉर्प्शन मैकेनिज्म, IUPAC classified the pore size by their internal pore width into following three types. First is our micropores. तो आप micropores कब कहेंगे? When the pore width is below 2 नैनोमीटर. अगर इसका width जो है 2 नैनोमीटर से कम होंगे, या ये जो इसका डायमीटर 2 नैनोमीटर से कम होंगे, ऐसे पोर्स को आप माइक्रोपोर्स डिफाइन करेंगे. अगर आपका 2 से 50 नैनोमीटर है तो उससे पोर्स को आप मीजोपोर्स कहेंगे. और अगर आपका उससे भी 50 नैनोमीटर से भी ज्यादा है, वैसे पोर्स को आप मैक्रोपोर्स कहेंगे. So based on the width of the pores are divided into three major categories. One is micropores when the width is below 2 nanometer, and it is mesopores when the width of the pore is between 2 to 50 nanometer, and it is macropores when the width of the pore is greater than 50 nanometer. So when the pore is very small, then there is no capillary condensation occurs. And if the pore is between 2 to 50, then there is a capillary condensation occurs. And this capillary condensation phenomena is very important to determine the hysteresis loops of your isotherms, which we will see on later. So now, once you have determined the pore size, now let's come to the IUPA classification of the adsorption isotherm. Now आपका क्या, आपने बीटी करा लिया, उसमें आपका पहले आपने एडसॉर्प्शन ले लिया, फिर आपने डिसॉर्प्शन ले लिया. अब ये सब आपका क्या है, दिस इज योर एडसॉर्प्शन एंड डिसॉर्प्शन. अब आप इसका मशीन आपको ग्राफ देंगे. फॉर एग्जांपल आपका एडसॉर्प्शन इस तरह, ये डिफरेंट काइंड ऑफ आइसोथर्म्स है, दे व्हिच विल शो द नेचर ऑफ एडसॉर्प्शन एंड डिसॉर्प्शन ऑफ द मॉलिक्यूल. अब ये आपका पहला इस तरह एडसॉर्ब हो रहा है, यहाँ पे आपका सैचुरेशन आ गया. इसके बाद आप इसका टेम्परेचर जब आप डाउन करेंगे तो डिसॉर्प्शन होना स्टार्ट होगा. तो डिसॉर्प्शन होने पे क्या होगा, प्रेशर कम करने पे आपका जो भी एडसॉर्ब मॉलिक्यूल वैसे वापस डिसॉल्व होंगे. तो डिसॉल्व या ये अपने इस लाइन में हो सकता है, या आपको ऐसे आ सकता है, या आपको ऐसे आ सकता है. तो दिस the branch of adsorption and desorption will give you different kind of isotherms, and these isotherms are specific for different kinds of material. और ये कैसे आइसोथर्म बनेंगे, वो आपके मेनली मेटल जो भी आप सॉलिड लेंगे उसकी नेचर पे डिपेंड करेंगे. यूजुअली ये जो फर्स्ट 3 आइसोथर्म, इसको हम नॉन पोरस मटेरियल के लिए हम मानते हैं. ठीक है, जैसे कि ये माइक्रोपोर्स बहुत कम छोटे होंगे, नॉन पोरस और वीक सबस्ट्रेट. यूजुअली दीज 3 आर कंसीडर्ड फॉर नॉन पोरस मटेरियल, एंड ये आपका पोरस मटेरियल के लिए माना जाता है. ठीक है, सो इन 1985 IUPA published a classification of adsorption based on the literature study done by BDDT, that is Brunner, Deming, and Teller. So following these 6 kind of adsorption isotherms were established. So the first isotherm is micropores, and it is we can draw it between amount of adsorbed gas versus relative pressure. So this is first form. This is for my first isotherm, second isotherm, third isotherm, fourth, fifth, and sixth isotherm. Now let's see each isotherm separately and what are these isotherms, what kind of information these isotherms can give to us. So type 1 isotherms. So the type 1 isotherms is usually for material having pores, typically micropores, with the exposite surface residing almost exclusively inside the micropores, which once filled with adsorbate, leaving little or no external surface or further adsorption. So this is the isotherms. When adsorption is limited to a few molecular layers as in chemisorption. So this is usually the adsorption isotherms we got for chemisorption में हमें ऐसा एड्सॉर्प्शन मिलेंगे जहां पे क्या है, ये जो एड्सॉर्प्शन कर्व है वो कॉन्केव है विद रेस्पेक्ट टू अपॉन पी पी नॉट अपॉन पी विद अपॉन कॉन्केव टू और रिलेटिव प्रेशर या रिलेटिव प्रेशर। इन इस पे क्या है, इन फिजिसॉर्प्शन केस माइक्रोपोरस मटेरियल एक्सिबिट दिस। अगर फिजिसॉर्प्शन की बात करें तो अगर आपका मटेरियल माइक्रोपोर्स है तो आपको ऐसा आइसोथर्म मिलेंगे, ठीक है। सो दिस आइसोथर्म्स इज यूजुअली एसोसिएटेड विद योर मोनोलेयर कवरेज एंड इट कैन बी एक्सपेक्टेड फॉर लेइंग मोर आइसोथर्म। तो यहाँ पे हो क्या रहा है, जैसे ही आप प्रेशर बढ़ा रहे हैं आपका एड्सॉर्प्शन बढ़ रहा है, यहाँ पे आके आपका मोनोलेयर कंप्लीट हो गया। इसके बाद क्योंकि लेगमोर में हमारा मोनोलेयर ही होते हैं, इसके अबो और एड्सॉर्प्शन नहीं होगा तो आपका यहाँ पे आके सैचुरेशन पॉइंट बन गया। सो दिस नी विल indicates that their monolayers formation is completed। यहाँ पे आपका मोनोलेयर फॉर्मेशन कंप्लीट हो चुका है, ठीक है। तो टाइप 1 आइसोथर्म्स आप यूजुअली आपका मोनोलेयर, जहां पे आपका मेसोपोरस फिजिसॉर्प्शन केस में और लिंगुअर केस में आपको ऐसा एड्सॉर्प्शन आइसोथर्म देखने को मिले, ठीक है। नाउ लेट्स कम टू आवर सेकंड आइसोथर्म दैट इज नॉन पोरस। यूजुअली दिस काइंड ऑफ आइसोथर्म्स we can get it for non-porous material and it is when adsorption occurs on non-porous powder, ठीक है। और जहां पे पाउडर ऐसा होगा जिसमें पोर्स के डायमीटर आपका माइक्रोपोर्स से थोड़ा बड़ा होगा, ठीक है। सो यहाँ पे आइसोथर्म्स क्या बता रहा है कि आपका यहाँ से एड्सॉर्प्शन हो रहा है, यहाँ पे आके आपका मोनोलेयर क्या हो गया, कंप्लीट हो गया। इसके बाद भी आप ठीक है। तो यहाँ पे हमारा यही है कि पॉइंट इज that our in case of type 2 isotherms, both our adsorption and desorption branches are coinciding with each other. Similarly, in case of type 3 also, our adsorption and desorption branches also here are coinciding with each other. That's why we got a single branches here. So this is the adsorption, and these option branches will also are also coinciding on the same layer. So this curve is convex to our relative pressure, that is P upon P naught axis. So it depicts अनरिस्ट्रिक्टेड मल्टी लेयर कवरेज। तो यहाँ पे अनरिस्ट्रिक्टेड मल्टी लेयर कवरेज हो रहा है। कोई भी यहाँ पे पहले आपका मोनो लेयर के लिए नहीं आ रहा है, ठीक है। तो आपका रैंडमली मल्टी लेयर फॉर्मेशन ऑकर्स हो रहा है और इसमें आपका कोई नहीं आ रहा है, ठीक है। So now let's come to our fourth type of isotherm that is very important. And here we can say that a new hysteresis loop are appearing here. ये आपका क्या है? Hysteresis loop. ये आपका hysteresis loop है, and these hysteresis loops appears due to our capillary condensation. तो हमने कहा था जहां पे पोर्स आपका 2 to 50 नैनोमीटर है, वहां पे आपका capillary condensation process occurs होते हैं, and this occurs in material having mesopores, जिसमें pore size आपका 2 to 50 नैनोमीटर तक होंगे, ठीक है। And these type of isotherms mainly exhibited by our mesopores material, and the hysteresis loop in such type of materials occurs due to capillary condensation. Capillary condensation occurs at a pressure greater than or equal to 0.2, which is the main, and this hysteresis loop is the main feature of the isotherm type 4. अब आपको करना क्या है, जैसे ही आप मटेरियल के अपने if you will take the BET analysis of your sample, and you आपके पास एक आइसोथर्म मिलेंगे, उस आइसोथर्म को आप इन आइसोथर्म्स के साथ क्या करेंगे, कंपेयर करेंगे। कंपेयर करके पता चलेगा कि आपका मटेरियल कौन से आइसोथर्म्स के साथ मैचअप हो रहा है और आपकी मटेरियल की नेचर क्या है, whether it is porous, whether it is non-porous, whether it is mesoporous, whether there is capillary condensation is occurring or not. So this is type 4. Now we have type 5. Again, in case of type 5 isotherms, we have a hysteresis loop here. So these hysteresis loops again occurs due to capillary condensation. आगे हम देखेंगे capillary condensation क्या होता है, and this type of isotherms is very rare. ये आपको बहुत कम देखने को मिलेंगे, but sometimes it will comes with your porous isotherms. So this is the fifth type of isotherms. Then last we have the sixth type of isotherms, and this type of isotherms occurs for multi-layer material. ये आपकी मल्टी लेयर मटेरियल या वी कैन से मल्टी लेयर एडसॉर्प्शन को बताता है कि पहला आपका एडसॉर्प्शन हो गया, यहाँ पे जो नी आ गया वहां पे आपका फर्स्ट लेयर कंप्लीट हो गए, देन यहाँ पे एडसॉर्प्शन सेकंड नी आ गया, यहाँ पे आपका सेकंड लेयर, देन आपका थर्ड लेयर। तो दिस काइंड ऑफ एडसॉर्प्शन विल अपीयर फॉर मल्टी लेयर एडसॉर्प्शन इन ए स्टेप वाइज, एंड फॉर नॉन पोरस मटेरियल के लिए इसका दोनों आपका एडसॉर्प्शन एंड डिसॉर्प्शन ब्रांच आपका कोइंसाइड हो रहा है। लेकिन यहाँ पे आपका देखो, ये पहले आपका एडसॉर्प्शन ब्रांच यहाँ से जा रहा है, यहाँ से जा रहा है, यहाँ पे सैचुरेशन आ गया, जो ही आप इसको, ये आपका क्या है, एडसॉर्प्शन ब्रांच है, तो वापस ये आने पे यहाँ से आ गया, ये वापस आ रहा है, ठीक है। जो ही आप गैस को डिसॉल्व कर देंगे, यहाँ पे आपका इसका डिसऑर्प्शन का ब्रांच अलग हो गया, ठीक है। डिसऑर्प्शन का ब्रांच अलग होने पे यहाँ पे आपका एक हिस्टेरेसिस लूप आ गया, एंड दिस हिस्टेरेसिस लूप्स ऑकर ड्यू टू आवर कैपिलरी कंडेंसेशन। नाउ देखते हैं कैपिलरी कंडेंसेशन क्या है। Capillary condensation is the process by which multi-layer adsorption from the vapor into a porous medium proceeds to the point at which pore becomes filled with condensate लिक्विड। तो ये आपका पोर है। यूजुअली ये आपका बॉटल नेक शेपेड पोर्स में ही होते हैं, जहां पे आपका माउथ जो है थोड़ा कम है, फ्लैटेड है, और इसका जो पोर का इंटरनल स्ट्रक्चर वो ज्यादा है। तो यहाँ पे क्या होता है, जैसे ही आपका कंडेंसेशन एड्सॉर्प्शन होगा, एड्सॉर्प्शन यहाँ पे इस तरह मोनोलेयर हो जाएंगे। लेकिन मोनोलेयर होने के बाद यहाँ पे क्या होगा, यहाँ पे कंडेंसेशन होना स्टार्ट होगा। फिर ये पूरा पोर साइज आपका इंस्टेड ऑफ गैस, ये यहाँ पे आपका गैस कंडेंस होके लिक्विड का शक्ल लेंगे, ठीक है, सेमी लिक्विड की शक्ल लेंगे। तो इसी वजह से इसी को हम कहते हैं कैपिलरी कंडेंसेशन होना। The unique aspect of capillary condensation is that vapor condense occurs। यहाँ पे जो आपका वेपर्स था ये कंडेंस होता है, कंडेंस होते हैं बिलो सैचुरेशन वेपर प्रेशर। सैचुरेशन वेपर प्रेशर से पहले ही ये कंडेंस होना स्टार्ट होते हैं और ये गैसेस से प्योर लिक्विड में कन्वर्ट होते हैं, और इसी वजह से आपका यहाँ पे कैपिलरी कंडेंसेशन हो जाता है। This result is due to increased number of van der Waal interaction between the vapor phase molecules inside the confined place of the capillary। ये आपका कैपिलरी बन जाता है, और यहाँ पे गैसेस मॉलिक्यूल्स के बीच में ज्यादा इंटरेक्शन बढ़ने से आपके गैसेस मॉलिक्यूल्स रिलेटिव वेपर प्रेशर, सैचुरेशन वेपर प्रेशर से पहले ही कंडेंस हो जाते हैं, और आपका कैपिलरी एक्शन प्रोड्यूस होता है। वंस कंडेंसेशन हैज ऑकर्ड, a meniscus, ये जो meniscus बनता है, immediately forms at the liquid vapor interface which allows for equilibrium below the saturation vapor pressure। तो यहाँ पे liquid meniscus बनने से ये पूरा यहाँ पे वो saturation vapor pressure से पहले ही ये आपका कंडेंसेशन हो जाता है। तो दिस इज योर कैपिलरी कंडेंसेशन। नाउ नेक्स्ट इज ऑरिजिन ऑफ हिस्टेरिसिस। जो यहाँ पे पिछले ग्राफ्स में हमने देखा, यहाँ पे हिस्टेरिसिस किसकी वजह से आया, तो दो मेन रीजन है। द हिस्टेरिसिस originates due to capillary condensation and change of geometry during adsorption and desorption process। आपकी adsorption प्रोसेस के वक्त अगर आपकी मटेरियल की या पोर की कोई अलग ज्योमेट्री है, और डिसॉर्प्शन के टाइम आपका ज्योमेट्री अगर चेंज होते हैं, उसकी वजह से भी हिस्टेरिसिस आ जाते हैं। तो हिस्टेरिसिस के दो मेन रीजन है, एक आपका कैपिलरी कंडेंसेशन, दूसरा चेंज इन द ज्योमेट्री ड्यूरिंग एडसॉर्प्शन एंड डिसॉर्प्शन प्रोसेस। नाउ let's come to the classification and last point of our today's lecture, that is the classification of hysteresis group। अब जो hysteresis group हमें बना है उसको भी चार पार्ट में डिवाइड किया गया। So there are 4 types of hysteresis group depending upon the shape and size of the pores। So यहाँ पे अगर आप hysteresis groups को देखेंगे, ये डिफरेंट है इससे, ये डिफरेंट है इससे, ये डिफरेंट। यहाँ पे ये दोनों एड्सॉर्प्शन, ये वाला क्या है आपका एड्सॉर्प्शन लाइन है, ये आपका डिसॉर्प्शन लाइन है। तो दोनों पैरेलल में है और ऑलमोस्ट वर्टिकल में है, ठीक है। यहाँ पे आपका इस तरह ट्रायंगुलर शेप लूप बन रहा है, यहाँ पे लूप और भी कम बन रहा है, यहाँ वर्टिकल है यहाँ पे, ठीक है। यहाँ पे वर्टिकल भी नहीं है, स्पेस भी कम है। यहाँ पे आपका बिल्कुल हॉरिजेंटल लाइन बन रहा है, ये आपका क्या है, एड्सॉर्प्शन ब्रांच है। इस वक्त आपका एड्सॉर्प्शन हो रहा है, ये आपका डिसॉर्प्शन हो रहा है। तो ये 4 डिफरेंट काइंड्स ऑफ हिस्टेरेसिस लूप क्लासिफाई किया गया है। पहला हिस्टेरेसिस लूप अगर आप देखेंगे, दिस काइंड ऑफ हिस्टेरेसिस लूप्स विल come when the channels are uniform size and shape। अगर आपका पोर जो है बिल्कुल यूनिफॉर्म साइज और शेप के हैं, तो इस टाइप का हिस्टेरेसिस लूप आपको बनेंगे, ठीक है। एंड the two branches, these two adsorption and desorption branches are parallel and almost vertical over a considerable range of pressure। यहाँ से लेके यहाँ तक आपका ये दोनों क्या है, बिल्कुल वर्टिकल है और पैरेलल है। तो अगर आपका पोर साइज बिल्कुल यूनिफॉर्म है और सेम साइज के हैं, तो इस टाइप के हिस्टेरेसिस लूप आपको मिलेंगे। सेकंड टाइप ऑफ हिस्टेरेसिस लूप, यहाँ पे आपका इंक बॉटल शेपेड पोर्स होंगे। तो आपका इस तरह का अगर पोर साइज होंगे, तो आपका ट्रायंगल टाइप हिस्टेरेसिस लूप बनेंगे, ठीक है। ट्रायंगुलर शेप विद 2 शार्प डिसऑर्प्शन ब्रांचेस, यहाँ पे बिल्कुल आपका डिसऑर्प्शन एकदम से नीचे आ रहा है, ठीक है। तो ये आपकी ऐसे यू कैन गेट दिस काइंड ऑफ हिस्टेरेसिस लूप इन सच मटेरियल वेयर द पोर्स माउथ आर स्मॉलर देन देयर बॉडी। सो the H2 hysteresis is observed in material in pore shape of channel line. Okay, where capillary condensation can occur, and usually gels of inorganic oxide and glasses that are porous in nature gives this type of hysteresis loop. Now let's come to our hysteresis loop type 3. These kind of hysteresis loops are very are found in solid with very wide distribution pore size, जहाँ पे pore size का distribution बहुत ज़्यादा है, where we have small, triangular, spherical, and any kind of hysteresis shape can get here. So here the desorption branches consists of steep region with closure of hysteresis loop. यहाँ पे hysteresis loop बहुत close हो रहा है, कम होते आ रहा है, ठीक है, और यहाँ पे आके ये merge हो रहा है. So this kind of hysteresis या isotherm found in material having aggregates that are non-rigid and platelet particles forming slit shape. इस तरह अगर आपका slit shaped pores है, वहां पे इस टाइप के आपको hysteresis loop बनेंगे. और यहाँ पे आपका saturation point भी नहीं आ रहा है, यहाँ पे आके आपका hysteresis loop बिल्कुल बंद हो रहा है. And the last type of hysteresis, that is we have here horizontal branches. आपका बिल्कुल इस तरह horizontal branches बन रहा है, and these kind of pores were observed which have narrow and or slit shaped particles containing non-regular shape of whites, usually with pore size distribution that is broad. जहाँ पे pore size distribution बहुत broad होगा, उसमें आपको ऐसे hysteresis loops मिलेंगे. So in conclusion, we can say purely mesoporous material that consists pores of cylindrical shape in mesoporous range and uniform exhibit type 4 isotherms with H1 hysteresis loop using nitrogen adsorptive. Pore size distribution is random manner, and when they are interconnected to usually gives hysteresis loop the H2 or H3. So this is how we have different kinds of hysteresis loop, how we have different kinds of isotherms, and these isotherms and hysteresis loops are very specific depending upon the nature of the material. So these are the reference for us. Then what we have to do? We have to do the BAT analysis of our sample, and then we have to compare our sample with this reference hysteresis loop and isotherm, and after that we can analyze our sample, what kind of surface our samples have, what kind of pore size our samples have. So this is all about our BET. So in today's lecture, we have learned the basic concept of adsorption isotherms, Friendly, Langmuir, BET model, and how we can calculate surface area and specific surface area by using BET model. What are the different distribution of pores according to IUPAC in BET? What are the classification of isotherms in BET? And what are the classification and what are the characteristics of different isotherms and hysteresis loops in case of BET? Okay, so this is all about our BET. So thank you for watching this lecture. So thank you for today.